The story opens with a young woman whose elegance conceals a deeper mystery. She appears to be a maid, gifted as a companion to a hero named Arthur Louis Zetes, the future heir to one of the country's most powerful corporations. Yet, through a twist of fate, she now finds herself in Arthur's household. Arthur observes her with quiet curiosity. Though she looks perfectly human, he doubts that anyone could have created something so lifelike. The craftsmanship behind her form alone makes him acknowledge why the Zetes Corporation dominates the entire nation's technology industry. Still, a sliver of doubt lingers in his mind, and he decides to watch her carefully. It doesn't take long for his suspicions to prove justified. Within moments of observing her, something unexpected happens. Arthur intervenes immediately, restoring order and assigning her to investigate the incident, suspecting that her appearance there had been planned to test his reactions. His sharp instincts serve him well. He quickly deduces that someone is monitoring him from the rooftop and orders his assistant to remove a hidden microphone beneath the table. Years of betrayal have taught him caution. Arthur's life has been shaped by deceit and survival. His own relatives have attempted to poison, kidnap, and get rid of him. It is no wonder that he has grown to despise human nature. That same evening, he receives a package containing a bouquet of flowers. His assistant admires their beauty, but hidden within is a knife. The delivery, intended as a message, reminds Arthur of the truth he has always known. People exist only for greed and impurity. To him, humans are selfish, driven by desire and deception. Objects, on the other hand, never betray. A robot incapable of lying or corruption is the only form of loyalty he trusts. Yet, as he studies the maid again, something disturbs him. She appears to be sweating, an act no machine should be capable of. Meanwhile, Marie Advance, the supposed robot, reveals impressive combat abilities, moving with the precision and strength of a martial artist. However, her stoic face betrays something unusual. She is sweating not from mechanical malfunction, but from fear. The truth is that Marie is human. To save her parents from crushing debt, she accepted a contract to serve the Zetes family, pretending to be an artificial being. Now trapped in her disguise, she must act perfectly mechanical or risk exposure. Arthur, however, fails to notice her humanity. He studies her with interest, admiring her poise and cold demeanor. When she announces she will clean the room, her mechanical tone brings him a strange sense of calm. He begins to address her more personally, sensing an odd contrast between his own intensity and her emotionless composure. While his assistant serves tea, he explains Murray's new role. Arthur faces constant assassination attempts, and the maid will act as his personal bodyguard. As the assistant speaks, Murray quietly prepares food. She remarks that she is only allowed to eat when her master is in the bath, a rule she accepts with robotic discipline. When she steals a sandwich and runs off, the assistant panics, realizing that if her true nature is discovered, they will both be punished. Later, when the driver arrives late, Arthur reprimands him severely. He detests lateness as much as deceit, believing that unreliability is a sign of weakness. In the car, he mentions an upcoming university lecture followed by a formal dinner with an associate's son, a rude and reckless man. Arthur instructs her to act human during the event. At the university, Marie witnesses Arthur's brilliance firsthand. He is an exemplary student, admired by peers and respected by professors. But not everyone is kind. A group of boys accidentally bump into her in the corridor, muttering apologies. Mary responds mechanically, exposing her robotic disguise. Their mocking tone makes it clear they see her as nothing more than a tool. Arthur arrives in time, defending her with quiet authority. The boys retreat, and Arthur remarks to himself that her emotionless face is oddly charming. When they return to the mansion, Arthur's half-brother Maillard greets them. His demeanor is polite, but his eyes are filled with malice. The tension between them is palpable. Both exchange hollow compliments and disguised insults, concealing years of resentment beneath polite smiles. Mary, naive and trusting, initially believes Maillard to be kind. Later, when Maillard excuses himself to find the bathroom, Mary offers to guide him, startling him with her sudden movement. Nervous, he insists she stop. She apologizes mechanically. When he examines her, fascinated yet uneasy, he wonders about the purpose of a maid who cannot even smile. In response, she attempts one, a twisted, unnatural imitation that sends chills down his spine. The grotesque expression leaves him visibly shaken, and he hurriedly leaves the room. That night, Arthur stands by his window, watching the dark city beyond. Memories of his childhood flood back, the warmth of his father's hand, the hatred in his brother's eyes. His solitude feels heavier than ever. Murray approaches him quietly, interrupting his thoughts. She regrets doing so when she sees the pain on his face. Arthur asks her for a favor, lying down and resting his head on her lap. Her body feels firm beneath him, and he assumes it must be the metallic frame of her design. In truth, it is the strength of her human body. For the first time in years, Arthur feels peace. He confides that he has never had anyone by his side. The weight of being chosen as heir has left him alone, burdened with responsibility he never asked for. Mary promises to stay by his side always. Deep inside, she realizes that beneath his cynicism lies a boy who only seeks warmth and trust. Yet she senses something hidden. She can tell that he, too, is lying about his indifference. The next morning, two identical cars appear at the mansion. One arrives early. Moments later, the real one shows up. The kidnapper reveals himself to be none other than Maid. He sneers at Arthur's helplessness, mocking the robot maid who dared to defy him. His taunts are cruel, dripping with years of resentment. Arthur, bound and powerless, realizes too late that his brother has been plotting his downfall from the start. Mary's absence haunts him. He cannot believe she could have survived the attack. Rage and despair twist inside him as Maid gloats, speaking of erasing the family name entirely. Arthur remains defiant not from pride, but from grief. But his defiance earns him more cruelty. Maid accuses him of despicable acts, mocking his parentage and character. Arthur silently accepts that the world would be better off without him. Still, one thought lingers: gratitude. Meeting Mary, even for a short while, had given him a reason to care again. Then, against all expectation, a familiar voice cuts through the chaos. Mary bursts into the scene, alive and determined. Her combat skills prove real as she leaps into battle, dismantling the attackers one by one. Within moments, she frees Arthur, guiding him through the warehouse. But danger lingers. The place is filled with gasoline. And one of the men carelessly lights a cigarette. Flames erupt instantly, spreading through the structure. Smoke fills the air. The stairs collapse. Arthur begins to lose consciousness. Desperate, Marie searches for an exit and spots a small basement window. She hoists Arthur onto her shoulders, determined to carry him to safety. But when he realizes her plan, he refuses to abandon her. He insists she isn't made of indestructible metal, that she will die if she stays. Marie, knowing the truth, decides to reveal it. For the first time, she speaks from her heart. Serving him had become more than duty. She had come to treasure his presence. Beneath her emotionless exterior, she had discovered something human, something real. Arthur listens, torn between disbelief and pain. He recognizes her courage and tells her that she deserves more than a life of danger and deception. He believes she can simply reboot if she survives, but deep down he knows it isn't true. She pushes him through the window, urging him to live. Flames consume the room behind her. When the world fades back into color, Marie awakens in a hospital bed. Burned but alive, she sees Arthur sitting beside her. Relief floods his face as he explains that he contacted Roy, his assistant, to help her after the fire. Something about her haunts him, the memory of her warmth, her trembling hands, and what he swears was a smile in the flames. Roy and Mary notice his silence, wondering if he has realized the truth. Arthur finally decides to keep his thoughts buried. He convinces himself that perhaps he only imagined her humanity. For now, he insists that she remain a robot because that is what the world expects her to be, what he expects himself to believe. Loving a machine would be madness, and loving a person would be weakness. Mary accepts her role once more, pretending to be what he wants her to be, not because she must, but because it is the only way to stay by his side. And so their story ends, a broken boy and the woman who pretends to be a machine. Bound by the fragile illusion of loyalty and the unspoken truth of love, neither dares to admit. The next morning, the courtyard of the Zetes mansion was alive with preparation for an important event. Arthur oversaw everything with sharp precision, his gaze scanning every corner. When he noticed that some chairs were missing, he immediately confronted a maid, accusing her of negligence. The terrified woman tried to explain that she had followed instructions, but Arthur, losing his patience, dismissed her on the spot. He refused to tolerate even the smallest mistake. Afterward, his attention turned to Maria, whom he silently praised for her flawless efficiency. To him, she represented the pride of Zetes Corporation, a perfect, tireless machine. Soon, elegant guests from high society began to arrive. As Maria observed them, she couldn't help but feel that this world of wealth and refinement was far removed from her own experience. Arthur greeted the guests confidently, explaining that his father, away on business, had entrusted him with full responsibility for the party. As the family's heir, he could not allow any imperfection to tarnish their name. Quietly, he instructed Maria to stay alert for suspicious behavior and, in a lower voice, gave her an unusual order to ensure that no green bell peppers were served, since he despised them. Maria nodded silently, committing herself to the task. Moments later, Arthur's uncle and aunt Carl and Charlotte arrived, greeting him warmly. Maria was surprised, having assumed he was estranged from his family. Roy, standing nearby, explained that these two were among the few relatives who still supported him. Arthur's mood lightened as he thanked them for coming. Charlotte noticed that her nephew seemed unusually cheerful, as if something good had recently happened. Proudly, Arthur introduced Maria as the greatest success of Zetes Corporation. Charlotte approached, fascinated by the maid's human-like presence, almost doubting that she was truly mechanical. Inside, Maria worried about being discovered, but Roy diverted attention by asking her to carry more dishes. While serving, a cat darted across the courtyard, nearly spilling wine everywhere. With remarkable reflexes, Maria caught the animal and stabilized the glasses without spilling a drop. The guests were stunned, and Carl remarked that no human could have such precision. Roy quickly added that Maria was equipped with seismic isolation, highlighting her superiority as a machine. As Maria continued her duties, she noticed another maid carrying a dish decorated with green bell peppers. Remembering Arthur's request, she discreetly removed it before anyone noticed, ensuring that the ingredient would not reach his table. A sudden noise from outside drew her attention. Detecting an intruder, she reacted instantly, disabling him with a swift kick. Realizing there could be more, she carefully entered the mansion, checking each room and moving upstairs. When she sensed movement behind her, she turned and grabbed the figure, only to find Arthur. Later in the office, Arthur rested his head on her lap, exhausted from hosting. For the first time, Maria saw him vulnerable, human in a way she hadn't expected. When he leaned closer, a strange sensation stirred within her. Her heart began to race uncontrollably. Startled, she froze, and Arthur quickly stood up, composing himself before leaving to rejoin the guests. Outside, Charlotte observed quietly, stroking the cat. Something about Maria felt off, too natural, too alive. She couldn't shake the sense that the maid was not what she seemed. Back at the party, Maria tried to calm the strange rhythm of her heart. Roy called her over to serve water, but distracted, she picked up a pitcher without realizing there were no cups and accidentally poured it over him. Mortified, she apologized, but Roy quietly told her to step aside. Ashamed, Maria scolded herself, fearing she had embarrassed Arthur. Moments later, faint whispers from the bushes caught her attention. She approached carefully and overheard someone mentioning a bomb meant for Arthur. Acting swiftly, she destroyed the detonator before it could be activated. In the process, she threw the attacker into the middle of the party, causing chaos among the guests, who screamed in fear, believing the robotic maid had malfunctioned. Maria panicked, convinced she had ruined everything. But Arthur stepped forward and calmed the crowd, explaining that she had just saved them from an assassination attempt. The guests' fear turned to admiration, and soon applause filled the courtyard. Carl remarked that Arthur clearly trusted her deeply, while Charlie observed that perhaps Maria's presence was helping him rediscover his faith in people. High above on the mansion's rooftop, Maynard watched the scene with rage, vowing revenge for his failed plan. That night, Arthur found Maria in the garden, now wearing the elegant dress he had ordered for her. Enchanted, he admired her appearance and took her hand, suggesting they spend a quiet moment together after the guests had gone. Maria, still troubled by her earlier mistake, apologized for causing trouble, but Arthur thanked her for everything, especially for ensuring that no green bell peppers appeared in the dishes. She found him kind and thoughtful, wishing she could serve him forever. When he asked about her energy source, she replied that she used batteries. Arthur appeared surprised but said nothing, hiding his growing doubt. He leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently. Startled, Maria stepped back and ran into the greenhouse, her mind spinning. She couldn't tell whether he had realized she was human. The next morning, Maria nervously prepared to face him again, uncertain whether the darkness of the previous night had concealed her reaction. Entering the living room with breakfast, she found Arthur greeting her casually. Confused, she wondered if he remembered the kiss. He noticed her unease but said nothing. Roy, watching from afar, feared Arthur's suspicion might be deepening. Just as Arthur seemed ready to speak, a bee flew between them. As he tried to swat it away, they came too close and Maria instinctively recoiled. Arthur, slightly flustered, ended the moment and left for the office with his meal. There he observed Maria closely, as though trying to read a secret written behind her calm exterior. Later, as she cleaned the windows, he approached and took her hand, offering help. Sensing that he was testing her, Maria deliberately moved with stiff, mechanical motions and emitted faint metallic sounds to reinforce her artificial image. She continued her act down the corridor, unaware that she was being silently watched. Not long after, Roy summoned her to the kitchen with a somber expression. He explained that Arthur had decided to let her go, suspecting something was wrong. Roy promised to continue supporting her, but insisted it would be safer for her to leave before the truth came out. Heartbroken, Maria pleaded to stay, promising not to be discovered, but Roy remained firm. Revealing her identity, he said, would only bring Arthur pain. Then he introduced her replacement, a new robotic maid identical in appearance but superior in function. In the office, Roy presented her to Arthur as Maria I, the latest model, and demonstrated her precision as she caught a fly midair. Arthur said nothing, simply nodding as if accepting the change. In her room, Maria packed her belongings in silence. She longed to stay but knew it was impossible. Roy accompanied her to the exit where a car waited. She tried to return her uniform but hesitated, saying it held too many memories. Roy thanked her sincerely for her dedication. Just as she was about to leave, Arthur appeared at the entrance, blocking her path. He looked at her intently, revealing that he had grown suspicious ever since Roy presented the new maid, officially named Maria Roman II. He demanded to know if she was hiding something. Struggling to remain calm, Maria told him that her presence was unnecessary now that he had a perfect replacement. Arthur admitted that the new model was more efficient but confessed that something essential was missing. Before he could continue, Maria Roman II identified the original as a threat and activated combat mode. In an instant, her hands transformed into blades and she lunged forward. Maria reacted instinctively, blocking each strike, but her opponent's strength was overwhelming. The floor trembled with every impact as the fight grew desperate. When a fatal blow was about to land, Arthur stepped in, shielding her and taking the hit himself. The sight of him injured ignited something deep within Maria. Fueled by fear and anger, she gathered all her strength and delivered a devastating kick that shattered Maria Roman II completely. Silence followed as she stood among the wreckage, realizing that no machine could ever truly replace her. Arthur, bleeding but conscious, confessed that he had known something was wrong all along. He believed her odd behavior was due to a defect, and that Roy had created the new version to cover it up. Determined to help, he promised to invest whatever it took to repair her. Relieved, Maria pretended to be fixed, resuming her calm, obedient demeanor. Without warning, Arthur embraced her, saying he wanted her to stay by his side forever. Deep down, Maria wished for the same. She understood now that the bond between them had grown beyond any divide between human and machine. The next morning, Roy greeted her with a discreet smile, expressing how pleased he was to work with her again. Arthur appeared happier than he had in years, carrying a quiet sense of peace. Yet the calm did not last. To everyone's surprise, Maria Roman II, believed destroyed, reappeared, restored, and upgraded. Roy explained that he had managed to recover part of her system, and that from then on, both Marias would protect Arthur together. Maria had accepted the decision without protest. She resolved to keep her secret hidden and remain beside the man who, without knowing it, had already captured her heart. And so that chapter of her story came to an end.